Hey everybody, you guys are in for a great treat today. We've got a special guest here in the studio. I guarantee you're going to have a gas. Hey everybody, Dave Edwards, Treasure Valley Dave here. You know you're a great real estate agent by your side when it comes time to buy a home, sell a home, or relocate to the Treasure Valley. And if you're thinking about relocating to the Treasure Valley, there might be some things a little different up here in Idaho that you need to know about when it comes to natural gas. And fortunately, we've got an expert right here in the studio. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You are a wealth of knowledge, a great guy, and also you relocated to Idaho as well.
I did 25 years ago.
Is that right?
Yes.
25 years ago. So tell me a little bit about that. Were you from California?
No, I was neighboring state, Nevada.
Nevada.
Hopefully somebody's heard of that.
Everybody knows Winnemucca. Nice.
Yeah, I'm a little further south in that area. Not quite Vegas, right in the middle.
Okay.
White Pine County.
Area 51?
A little north of there.
Okay.
White Pine County, Ely, Nevada.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's where I grew up there.
Nice.
So, yeah, my dad actually grew up in Melba, which is just south of here.
Right.
So this area has kind of been a second home in a sense. My grandparents lived out here. We come and visit off and on during the summers and those kind of things. So I've seen the area grow
right
as I paid attention as a kid. So
things do grow up here, which makes your job so vitally important.
Yes, the Treasure Valley is phenomenally. It's grown like leaps and bounds. And within my industry.
What is your job?
I do GIS mapping. That's just basically saying I just map out the gas lines, residential, commercials to your house. And, as I came up here in year 2000,
right,
got the job, and, it was just Intermountain Gas focused only. And then we've slowly have grown into part of another company called MDU. So that's kind of where we fall. Before we get into that, though.
Before we get into that, yeah. So you've been up here 25 years-ish?
Yep.
So what was it worth coming up here? I know it was a whole different era.
Yeah, it was definitely worth it because of the job. My previous employer was a gold mine. I was the kind of the low guy on the totem pole out there working on the blasting crew and that kind of stuff. That was fun. It was educational, but it was definitely one of those things where you travel 2 hours out, work your job, work your 10-hour shift, and travel 2 hours back. So you're gone a lot.
Right.
I had one kid at the time. Definitely it was a struggle. I went to school to be a draftsman, and the job came available up here at Intermountain Gas, and I decided, well, hey, that's where we're going to make a career out of it.
Right.
And since I had family, I had grandparents, I had a couple uncles and aunts that lived up around here, so the transition from Nevada up to here was pretty easy. Sure. Still on my own, young family.
Right.
And then a couple years later, moved out to Nampa.
Excellent. Well, we're glad you did.
Yep. Thank you.
So, and because you've been here so long, what have you seen this growth? Has it negatively impacted your experience of living in Idaho?
I would say it has. It's been both, right? It just depends on how you look at your.
Okay.
Job security wise, phenomenal. I haven't had a worry of losing a job.
Right.
Previously, right? So growth, you have. In subdivision after subdivision. You have industries, that kind of things. Yeah, the traffic has gotten worse. I've traveled to and from Boise for my job. So, but again, it's not as bad as other places. Again, you're always comparing.
Right.
And I heard of locals when I was, 25 years ago were saying, oh, this is the worst ever. And now I'm one of those guys that's saying, oh, yeah, it is one of the worst ever, right? So I've become one of those old timer guys.
Nice. Wow. And so gas is so important. Why is gas so important?
It's just another way to heat your home, cook, and, dry your clothes if you need to, depending on if you have the appliances. It's economical. We got plenty of natural gas. We have a pipeline that comes either from Canada or from the Utah area, depending on which way it's Williams Pipeline. That's our supplier.
Right.
And so we, depending on the fluctuation of pricing of gas, and it doesn't fluctuate that much. It really, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I just do the mapping side of things. But again, if you go through and read the history of stuff like that, it's right. pretty stable. The gas is pretty reliable.
Now, you sent over a couple slides. What should we take a look at there?
We could start off. Again, natural gas. we could kind of start with the basics. Again, it's natural gas and propane are roughly in that same family of things, right? People who have propane, you got to have that shipped into your residence or to your business. Whereas, for Intermountain Gas here, it's piped up right to your house. You don't have to worry about the supply. It's there. It's ongoing.
Right.
It's pretty much comes from plants and animals.
Dead dinosaurs.
It's all that kind of stuff. A lot of oil companies burn off the natural gas. They think it's a waste product, right? So we're talking your crude oils and that kind of stuff. And so they think natural gas is just, ugh. And to them it is, I guess. But for us, we want that to heat our homes and stuff. On the slide here, you can find this at American Gas Association. Read through it if you want to. But again, it's just what is natural gas made of? How do we measure it? You can measure it in BTUs, which is a British therm unit. Therms, again, those are all based off how we bill bill our customers. So yeah, take your time, read through that, pause the screen, whatever, if you're interested, or just go to the website. The next slide, I think, is kind of an interesting thing. Natural gas has been around since 1816, at least in the
1816,
at least in the states, right? Now again, Intermountain Gas, they started in the mid 50s or early to mid 50s,
Okay.
right? So, Intermountain Gas has not quite there yet, but our parent company, MDU, celebrated their 100-year birthday last year. So in the Dakotas, they had it slightly about 30 years prior to Idaho has.
And we're going to see a map in a minute that
Yeah.
shows the MDU how much it actually covers.
Correct. Yeah, it's a pretty big swath. But again, we're just a small company, mid company, anyways, right? There's bigger companies in the South and that kind of stuff who are phenomenal. But again, mid-sized companies here, we do our thing. We enjoy, supplying our customers with reliable resource, right? Reliable energy. So it's not like it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And, I compare electricity to natural gas. Electricity, when it's out on the grid, it's either used up or it's not. It doesn't store out on the grid. But with natural gas, if it's not being used, then it's going to be there when you're ready for it.
Right. Yeah. It's and I guess that's our competitor, right? Here in the Treasure Valley, you've got Idaho Power and you got Intermountain Gas. We work well together.
Right.
Back in the day, I think that there was that friendly competition of, electric's a lot better than gas and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, in our new construction nowadays, we partner well with Idaho Power, any of the other utilities that are out there. We do a lot of common trench, so it saves on cost that way, especially on new builds, right? So you make one big trench, you lay your pipes or your wires in respect to each other safely, and it's been a phenomenal program out there, to be able to get your gas lines, your electrical lines, whatever you need. So it's
excellent.
Yeah.
1816. Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a while.
How does natural gas fuel back to school? That's one question I've never had answered before.
I don't have any either. I when I pulled this up, I read this today, and I was like, oh, nice. Backpacks, binders, calculators. My assumption is Intermountain Gas and other gas companies are out there in their communities to serve.
Right.
Just to keep a few examples, at least for Intermountain side of things, every year and multiple months of the year, right? So in March, we help out with the PBS telethon locally. We answer the phones on, taking those kind of things. It's been phenomenal. I've done that many, many years.
Really?
Go down there in Boise and answer phone calls, talk to a bunch of people, take their donations. It's a great evening that way.
Nice.
A couple other things that Intermountain does is they go out and we'll do Rake Up Boise, Rake Up Nampa, Paint the Town, that kind of things. Those kind of few little organizations, we go out to help people who can't rake up all those heavy leaves or get their house painted up, So that's in, June and in the fall.
Well, that's great that your, the organization is so giving back to the community.
Right. Yeah, we definitely love to give back. We love to, help out. Christmas time, we're out there helping out as well with ringing the bells.
Practicing to be the Santa?
I could be one of these days. I've had people approach me on that. But yeah, we can move on without, some of the basics of gas.
What is this, mercaptan?
Mercaptan is just a basic term of that smell that you find in your propane tanks or your natural gas. Yeah, it's just, again, natural gas is, it's odorless, tasteless, right? So, if you have a leak and we didn't have that smell in there, it can be deadly, right? So
when you smell that smell, that means you need to do something.
You could potentially have a leak on something, right?
Right.
Definitely get your carbon monoxide in your homes. If you don't have them, definitely buy those. I've had a couple friends who passed away because of not having a carbon monoxide detector in their house.
If you have any kind of a fossil fuel burning thing, whether it's water heater or your furnace or your stove, you should have a
carbon monoxide detector.
Gotcha.
And it's just a safety thing. It definitely detects.
And it's so cheap, and
so affordable.
Has so much savings potential.
Oh, correct.
So here's that map. So this is MDU.
Yeah. So MDU's territory is, it covers these many states: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, both Dakotas, and Minnesota. There. Intermountain Gas, when I first started, was its separate own entity. It was in the southern part of Idaho, basically from Weiser, the Snake Plain area, up to over by Idaho Falls, Yukon area, Rexburg, and that kind of.
Right.
That's pretty much the territory, and it's still pretty much the territory now. Back in 2007, Intermountain Gas went up for sale, and again, April 1st, they sent out this email. I thought, what a bad joke, but no, it was true. They went up for sale. And MDU, who was based in Bismarck, bought Intermountain Gas. And the reason why they bought Intermountain Gas is because they were trying to fit that puzzle piece, because about 18 months prior, they had bought Cascade Natural Gas. Uh-huh. And so it was good for them to incorporate all of us together and try to integrate all our mapping, GIS stuff.
Right. Oh,
gosh, customer service, practices, safety thing, everything, right? It's taken many years to get all this integration together. And right now, I map pretty much in the Cascade area, which is fine. It's no different than mapping in Idaho,
right?
Because we basically map across all the states. So if somebody was needing help in the Dakotas, I can map out the same practice as I would in Idaho, kind of thing. Again, we're mapping out gas lines, leaks and repairs, all that kind of stuff.
And we're going to see some examples of that here in a little bit too.
Yeah, we'll definitely can see some examples. Here's a
Shazam.
Yeah, here you go. Here's a quick little example of a subdivision that you would see across any one of the states.
So one of you guys coming up here to buy a place, you might be looking at something very similar to this. What do all these lines mean?
Well, this is just basically what they call a plat map. Again, it just talks about, this developer, here's how they designed their roads, here's how their lot sizes are. You got little dash lines considering easements, whether you put your utilities in there. Some easements are public, some easements are specific for that utility, water, that kind of stuff. So we have to make sure that we know when we're designing our infrastructure there to actually go into the easement properly.
Okay.
And as you can see, again, this is not a very big development. Few roads, few lot lines, or a few lots. Call it great and wonderful. The next slide is kind of another example, except it's in an AutoCAD version.
Right.
Many people have heard of AutoCAD. Again, that's digital, and these go into our GIS a lot easier.
And CAD is computer-aided design.
Correct. That's exactly what it is, computer-aided design. So, when I would prefer to get a developer sending us a CAD file, because then we can just digitally grab what we need.
Right.
We don't need to map out all the contour lines. We don't need to map out all the whatever they have called out, right? Sidewalks, lamp posts, those types of things. On our mapping side, we just need to know property lines, center line of road, easements that are public utility, not specific for any.
Tons of information.
Yeah, so there's tons there. So we got to clean that CAD file down, put it into GIS, make polygons and all that kind of stuff. It's not a long process. I mean, it sounds long, but it's, for me, I've been doing it for a long time, so it's
right.
It's fun. It's a labor of love. Especially when you put the map together, then we can send it back to our districts and say, hey, here's the new land stuff. Now we design your gas lines.
Right.
And then so these next couple slides are just basically the same.
Okay.
That first slide we saw was a PDF, and I mapped out the polygons. Again, you got all your lot numbers. Those blue lines represent what the gas line is.
Okay.
And then, of course, in this development, when I took this screenshot, there's only five structures built. And those would be the ones with the little yellow squares. That represents where your riser gas meter's at.
Okay.
And so as you can tell, it's a fairly new development, but you can kind of see, what gas lines are crossing the streets, what aren't. And then when we map them out, we map them out, based off of an as-built, they call it.
Right.
And so right now we're going through a really new process. We're getting GPS information sent back to us. So mapping is going to be a little quicker. That's really brand new.
Wow.
That just started this year.
So how accurate is that going to be? Within like a foot?
It'll be sub-foot. Yeah.
Really?
Again, it depends on who's, again, if you have a person out there who doesn't know what they're doing for surveying wise, you can get bad information.
Right.
But we definitely got some really good stuff coming back. There's a few tweaks on certain things, but nothing too out of the ordinary. So once we map our land correct, and then come back with our GPS stuff, it comes in phenomenal. I mean, I'm really surprised how well it comes in.
Nice.
So definitely just, you want to do a good job because, again, locators out there, who are locating these lines and that kind of stuff want to be able to see, okay, where's our gas line? And again, this only shows the gas lines.
Right.
If we had electrical in the area, we wouldn't know about it, right? That's a whole different company. Even though because maybe this development right here may not have a common trench.
Right.
So we would want to know that if it is common trench, then chances are, maybe the other utilities ran with us roughly in the same spot. So.
Right.
So there's that one, and then here's another development. That same one we saw. That was an AutoCAD one. A couple of different icons or different symbology here. You see those little blue circles or yellow circles. Those are just markers. The yellow one indicates it's a below ground marker.
Right.
That you can locate it, without actually visually seeing. You got a piece of equipment.
What's that little hazard one at the bottom?
Oh, so the orange triangle that represents a potential leak. It could be either leaked by. Chances are it's probably somebody who dug into it.
Okay.
Who didn't realize there was a gas line there, or it could have been a leak that was, over time. Again, you can kind of look at the date there. 2023 is when this was put in. So chances are it's not a leak, older infrastructure. It's going to be somebody out there. So we have to map all those, to say, okay, how many leaks are on our system, and then we can do a risk analysis on that. So if we have certain areas in our system that have a lot of leaks based off of excavation or based off of corrosion,
right,
then we can say, okay, this may determine we need to go out and replace some of these older stuff. And we've gone through a lot over the number of years. We've gone through and replaced a lot of old steel pipe.
Right.
Because steel pipe will corrode over time depending on soil, moisture, and all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty neat little process there. So we got to map out that. Other than that, you could it's pretty basic.
So earlier we saw that other map that had like the easements. So if I'm moving into a piece of property and my agent gave me the plot and it shows where the easements are, does that mean I can't put anything there? I can't put my flowers there, or what does that mean?
Most of your easements, you shouldn't be putting any structures. So again, if you're putting a shed up, you need to make sure you know where those easements are, because potentially there could be utilities there, not just gas, right? We're talking electrical. If you build over the top of any existing utilities, then now you've got to get that rerouted, because you don't want to have anything going underneath your structure. Again, a simple structure like a shed, or if you're if you're just digging a garden, you got to be careful, right? You don't want to hit any of these utilities. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But here's just a simple picture of some gas meters, right? You got a multimeter service, usually for like an apartment complex or a business, right? So we definitely map those out to indicate, hey, this is a multimeter area. There's your normal house meter there in the top right, and that bottom one's a little larger meter. There's the meters that are actually a little bit, a little taller for like schools and those kind of things. These are things that you do not want to be climbing on. You don't want to be messing around with.
Those are monkey bars?
They're not monkey bars. They're definitely an issue. We had an instance in the state of Washington some years ago where a person jumped out of a hotel, landed on one of these meters and broke it, and then it actually burnt most of that motel down.
Jeez.
That's extreme. Again, it's those types of things where, you don't want to, you could cause issue with a lot of these things. Again, don't mess with your meter. Leave it alone. It's there for to measure. Again, you don't want to be doing this. This slide is a kind of an interesting one here.
So this says don't necessarily go with the cheapest bid.
No, you definitely do not want to be concreting your gas meter. This is definitely not on our system. I just found these online.
Right.
But again, you don't want to be building over the top of them. You want to try to keep any plants away from them because they need airflow,
Right.
and that kind of stuff. If you're buying a house and you kind of see stuff like this, that's something you might want to question.
Exactly.
Why is this way? You could call the gas company. Is it safe? The one on the right-hand side there, it potentially has got some issues there with the meter kind of kittywampus. And,
Yeah.
a little bit of the brown atmospheric corrosion. That's not too bad. Again, it's just atmosphere. Again,
Okay.
gas goes through our system pretty fast, and again, friction and that kind of things could potentially. And we always check our meters. Again, we annually check them, sometimes semi-annually, depending on the situation.
Really?
Yeah, we go out there and leak survey, make sure that they're good, and if there's any potential leaks or any potential hazards, we go out there and want to fix them, be
Right.
proactive.
So speaking of proactive, I moved into my place and I want to put in a garden, or I do want to put in a nice like garage thingy behind with footings and stuff, or maybe I want to put in my own irrigation system. What's the first thing I should do?
You definitely should call 811.
811.
811 is a free service in the state of Idaho. You call them up, you ask, hey, I'm going to be doing some digging. You basically kind of give a description of where you're going to dig at, right? I'm going to dig on the north side, south side of my property.
And someone's pulling up one of your maps, right?
Someone's going to be pulling up our maps. They're going to be pulling up power. They're going to be pulling up, whatever we give, because we give them our data at times. And so you call them up, and you can see there on the bottom of the screen there when you show the slide there that, there's not just electric, there's water, there's sewer, and, it's a free service. You call them several days in advance, give them about 2 to 3 days. Probably a little bit more, depending on what your project is. They'll come out, and the locator will come out, and they'll locate the gas line. They'll locate the electrical lines, that are on your property. They'll either spray paint them normally, within your property. If you have a dirt opened area, they'll probably put flags, those little tiny flags that you can probably go to the big box stores and buy, right?
Right.
They have those. They'll flag them out there, and they'll just say that's where your gas line is or your electrical line. That's kind of and you got to remember, it's not right exactly on top. It's within a few feet. So you still got to, if you're digging with some heavy equipment, you want to be aware of to hand dig a lot of these things. And again, you do not want to be hitting your gas lines or your electrical lines or or any of the utilities.
Does that actually ever happen?
Oh, it happens. Yeah, this happened in 2023.
That's right here in Middleton, Idaho.
Up in Middleton. They didn't hit our facilities, but they hit our supplier. So Williams Pipeline got hit in October of 2023. Some of you were probably around, heard that story where a gentleman was digging out in the field and hit this gas line, which is a supplier.
He was on a tractor or something?
Yeah, I think he was on a tractor or a backhoe or something, digging, if I remember right, a pond of some sort or something.
It's not going to happen with the shovel.
No, this didn't happen with the shovel. Williams Pipeline's pretty deep. We're talking more than 3 feet deep, right? Williams Pipeline does not have that mercaptan I talked about. So it's going to be that odorless gas. And those pipelines are, they're probably about 22 inches or thereabout, right?
Right.
And to hit that thing, that made a big boom. And you kind of seen the headline there. They had to evacuate people within a 4-mile radius.
4 miles.
The person survived, was injured. But again, that blowing gas and all that debris, it's definitely a dangerous thing. You don't want to be messing around. Again, if you think you know where your stuff's at, you don't know where your stuff's at. I know where my gas line's at, and I still had to call when I was ripping out a tree trunk.
Right.
Because again, I don't want to be hitting my own facility.
So what if, you're like this guy, you don't call ahead of time, and then you hit something? Are you in more trouble than if you did call ahead of time, and then you find something that maybe wasn't mapped?
Yeah, I would say you are more in trouble. I mean, you're more reliable. You are responsible for the damage, right? You hit your normal gas line to your house, it's probably a few $100. Okay, some people can afford that. If you're a person who owns a business, say laying sprinklers or fencing, and you constantly hit our lines, chances are we may not want to do business with you.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of the fact of it, right? Again, hitting a big line, you don't want to kill anybody. You don't want to damage property, right?
Yeah.
So those types of things, that's the extreme, right? Most of the time you're going to hit a gas line or hit an electrical line, it's going to cause a little bit of an issue or a lot of an issue. You're going to have to pay for us to come out, fix it.
Right.
Basically, here's your bill, and then pay us. I've heard many stories, in the Intermountain Gas area, the Cascade area, where contractors, whoever was digging, they see a piece of pipe or something in the ground, and they want, well, I don't know if it's live or not, and they take their Sawzall and cut through it. And I'm like, you're cutting into a live gas line or a live electrical line?
Right.
I mean, you don't want to be guessing like that. That's a big danger. So I always say, just 811 free.
Yeah.
Come on out. Keep our Treasure Valley, Nampa area clean and wonderful. I've got a few pictures of stuff that I like to do.
Man, that is beautiful.
I like to go fishing. I love to go out to the Jump Creek there, the little local park, and you got the lake there as well.
Right.
So yeah, definitely you want to come and enjoy the Treasure Valley. Get your utilities. If you're digging in your yard, call 811.
Call 811, because if you don't, you might have to take up a second job to moonlight to pay for your mistake.
Right, exactly.
And then you won't be able to take advantage of this.
Yeah, and again, free. You can't beat free, right?
Right.
A free service, and for safety and peace of mind to knowing where any of your facilities are at.
So on a kind of a different subject, though, if I'm down in California and I'm an engineer, kind of a graduate or something like that, are there those kind of jobs up here? Or did you get the last one and you're just not letting go?
Yeah, I'm the last one. No, these jobs, it comes and go. I mean, I'm now considered one of the old timers. So I've usually been, all my jobs, I've been the young guy. I'm now the old guy to come to. Yeah, MDU definitely advertises online for jobs that are available for whatever whether you're in accounting, whatever. It does take a lot of and again, they've gone remote. I mean, I work remote. I don't travel to and from Boise.
Oh, handy.
So they are definitely forward thinking on if you live in another state, you can work for Intermountain Gas and live in California, or if you can live in Utah, or you can live in back east. I have a coworker who actually travels from here, takes care of his mom for several months out in New York, and then he comes back. And it's such a neat thing to allow him to do that, and still work.
Sound like a great company to work for.
It's a phenomenal company.
Is there a website people can go to check out job announcements or whatever?
Usually it's intgas.com or jobs.mdu, depending on the local area. But yeah, it's intgas. Intermountain Gas or jobs.mdu.
Right.
So it just depends on where you're at. Got another slide here, it looks like.
Yeah. Now, what is this? Looks like at a launch pad of a spaceship or something?
Yeah. So Intermountain Gas back in the 60s.
Yeah.
They built this. They started in the 50s. We're in downtown Boise. They decided to buy this property up on the bench there. This is basically Cole Road and the freeway, roughly, in Boise.
Right.
And this
kind of where the hill comes.
The hill comes up exactly from Franklin Road. This is actually looking south. This building is considered. We'll call it the Roundhouse.
I can see.
You can see the roundness, right? Yeah. You can see the moat that was around it, water cooled, and the little white looking things those are little natural gas flames. Sadly, that moat is not there. The building's still there. This was again. Remember that competition that Intermountain Gas and Idaho Power had?
Right.
They didn't want to. Intermountain Gas was like, I'm going to be on my own. We're going to be, staunch and proud, and we're not going to need Idaho Power. So they had this building built, and the power generation lasted, I don't know how many years. So, I would say probably 5. I don't know.
Right.
I wasn't born then, right? And so they eventually, Intermountain Gas got onto the grid with power. I think it was just a statement, right?
Right.
But this building is kind of a unique building. One of my kids, they call it the bear house, because you can see the cages. But yeah, it's a neat building. If you were to drive by there today, again, that building's still there. They've upgraded some stuff around it. They've got flowers and shrubbery. The trees are a lot bigger, of course. That kind of stuff.
Maybe just because it's black and white, but it looks so ominous.
I know it does. Yeah. Well, it was a cloudy day that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like there's some snow on the ground there.
Speaking of snow,
this is the Geo building.
This is the Geo building.
Yeah. So this is the one I commuted to for 20 years until I decided to go remote.
Right.
This is looking north. You can kind of see the foothills in the back there. Bogus Basin would be kind of on your right there. Emmett almost to your left there. Yeah, this building's still standing. Of course, we've done a lot of upgrades and landscaping changes and what, but the building's pretty much been the same. Unfortunately, we're not open to the public, so we can't take your gas bill.
Oh.
So yeah, please pay online.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we haven't taken cash payments since 2000 and probably 10, 11 timeframe.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunate, but that's kind of the GO building. If you were to, I wish they would add a picture to the left. There, that would be the Boise district office.
Right.
But yeah, it's a nice little campus. It's right there on top of the hill. The mall, if you know the Boise area, the mall is just to the left and down the ways. But of course, it wasn't built in. But yeah,
wow,
it's nice. It's a great view. There's a basement to this building, so this is the first level,
right?
And the bottom level we call it the garden level, and we can actually look out up towards.
Oh, really?
I love. If I didn't have to do that darn commute, I mean, it's a fun little building to look out there. Yeah. Coal Road's busy,
but it's heated by gas, right?
It is definitely heated by gas. Yeah, could you imagine if it was just, we're all electric, but
right?
No, it's.
Wow. So you've gone over so much today, given us a lot to think about. What's the one main thing that you want our viewers to take away today?
I would say the main thing definitely would be the 811.
Okay.
Definitely call that number when you're out looking in, whether it's a new constructed home or in a well-established home. Definitely call.
That's putting in your irrigation in the backyard for your sprinklers?
Putting your irrigation in, putting in a pond. If you got to bury your loved ones, your cat, your dog, right, whatever.
No, that's never happened, has it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've had people dig a little grave for their cat or dog and hit the gas line.
Oh, my. Call before you dig.
Call before you dig. It's so free, so reasonable.
Right.
And, and like I say, Intermountain Gas is definitely here to serve our public with reliable natural gas.
I like it. And I like it too. Every month I get the bill. It's not that much.
No, it's not that much.
I like it.
And if you really want to be, if you really want to know your budget, you can go on level pay.
Sure.
That's a whole thing where it averages out throughout the whole year. And,
right.
So instead of paying, like $150 in the winter or whatever it is, and $9 in the summer, you could get that averaged out. And, so some people like that a lot.
Makes it very easy.
Yeah. And it will fluctuate here and there depending on your usage too. So again, definitely you want to make sure you have plenty of insulation in your house.
Right.
Change out that old water heater, those types of things.
Speaking of changing out, so I move into a house and it's got electric water heater. And it comes time, it's 15 years later and it's about time. Is it worth the hassle to change over to a gas system?
If you have gas in your neighborhood, I would say it's probably definitely worth it.
Okay.
There's going to be some upfront costs. There's going to be some digging, right? Because they're going to lay a gas line from the street to your house.
Right.
Again, it depends on your budget, but I think if it's worth it, if it's in your budget and you want to go to natural gas, it's definitely well worth looking into it. And if you don't want to go into natural gas, then stick with your electric. It's
right.
To each his own. But I kind of a little bias on the gas side of things, right?
But it's definitely worth checking out.
It's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, you definitely want to just give a call. That there's people out there, on our customer service, they're willing to help you out, to help on, finding other ways to be efficient. And again, the cost, or again, if it's too much to run a gas line, then don't do it, right?
Right.
We have some people in the rural areas that want a gas so bad, and it's just too much. And I get it, right? You're paying for laying the line all the way to your house, where the benefit might not come down the road for till 20, 30 years.
Right.
So it's definitely well worth looking into when you're buying a home.
Well, I'm so glad you stopped by today.
Thank you.
You've given us a lot to think about.
Test on Monday.
And Idaho's a great place to live?
Idaho's a great place to live. I love living here. It's even with all the growth in the Treasure Valley, we still got the mountains that are accessible, the desert to the south of us.
Right.
Plenty of recreation, rafting, fishing, hunting, that kind of stuff. And if you don't like that stuff, you still got stuff to do in Boise if you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Boise is kind of a high-tech area.
It is, yeah. It's a very safe community. I feel like we have, compared to some other places.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And if you need to fly anywhere, and we got the, airport.
Airports, yeah, we got one.
Yeah, we got an airport. We can get out of here and fly somewhere fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And
hopefully all your viewers enjoyed it.
Absolutely. I have no doubt about that. And next time you have an update for us, please feel free to stop by and, or shoot, maybe next time that we have one of those big explosions, give me a holler. We'll come video it.
Oh, there you go. We can report on those types of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those people that didn't call 811.
that's right. You better call it.
All right. Well, hey guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to know more about what it's like to live right here in the Treasure Valley, go ahead and check out this video here. Or is it there? I don't know. You'll figure it out. And guess what? We'll see you on the next video.